Okay, so let's get right into this. Today is Christmas Day, December 25th, 2025.
Yeah.
And it also marks a really a devastating milestone we have to talk about. It's day 35 of the continuous hunger strike by incarcerated advocate Kenneth Swift Justice Traywick at Bullock Correctional Facility.
For anyone who's been following this with us, day 35, I mean, that places Traywick deep into a critical danger window. Our mission today is really just an urgent update.
It has to be.
We're looking at a stack of sources that show how a protest against alleged retaliation has, well, it's become a full-blown medical emergency.
And it's one that's been completely isolated by this intense, and you have to say, deliberate wall of institutional stonewalling from the Alabama Department of Corrections, the ADOC.
It's all there in the sources.
It is. I mean, we have detailed statements from his advocacy group, UVOTCJ. We've got rigorous legal and medical analysis from his wife, Dr. Elizabeth Hancock Traywick.
And we should be clear, she herself holds a PhD and is a former corrections administrator. She knows the system inside and out.
Exactly. And on top of that, there are investigative reports that detail the truly staggering financial cost of ADOC's policies. And that's a cost to the Alabama taxpayer.
So what begins as one man's fight against personal retaliation has just spiraled. Now his life is at risk from both institutional denial and, frankly, medical indifference.
It's hard to overstate the stakes on a day like today, Christmas Day, the resistance the family is facing right now. I mean, the immediate isolation, the bureaucratic obstruction.
It tells you everything. It really does. It tells you exactly how the ADOC operates the second any real scrutiny is applied. We need to trace this back to the beginning.
Let's do that. Let's start with a catalyst for this desperation. So Kenneth Traywick, inmate #177252, he's a well-known voice for UVOTCJ.
Right, an advocacy group focused on constitutional conditions inside Alabama prisons.
So what was the specific spark? What pushed him to choose this ultimate form of nonviolent protest?
It started with him doing his job as an advocate. He was raising red flags about the treatment of mentally ill inmates in Bullock's mental health dorms.
Okay.
He was detailing what he alleged was the excessive use of chemical spray against people who were really vulnerable.
So he was putting necessary scrutiny on the system.
Which, unsurprisingly, put a massive target on his back.
And the sources point to a really shocking, specific incident right before the strike began on November 20th. This wasn't just some general harassment.
Oh, no, that's right. The breaking point, according to the documents, came when an officer, identified as Glover, allegedly sprayed Traywick with chemical agents from behind.
From behind.
While Traywick was just sitting on his bed. And what makes this so significant, and not just another use of force incident, is that Traywick linked this specific officer, Glover, to alleged threats against witnesses in another high-profile case.
The Michael Rouser case.
The Michael Rouser case. So he believed this was direct retaliation for his advocacy and for his status as a witness.
So in response to his peaceful protest against that retaliation, the system's reaction wasn't an investigation. It was.
It was swift, punitive isolation, instantly. The ADOC's response was to place him in restrictive housing and deny him key property. And this wasn't just isolation. It was designed to cut him off completely. He was denied writing supplies, access to his tablet.
The very tools he needs to advocate.
Exactly. And that's why we know he was forced to communicate by writing these desperate notes on tiny scraps of paper.
And even though he was completely walled off, by day 9, his core demands were already clear. What was he trying to achieve by putting his life on the line?
The demands, as reported by UVOTCJ, they really centered on accountability and safety for himself and for others.
So things like
an immediate transfer away from Bullock, an end to the pattern of retaliation and excessive force he was documenting, and an investigation and dismissal of the disciplinary charges he got in November, which he saw as purely retaliatory.
And he also needed his mail restored.
Yeah.
Right, because there was evidence it was being blocked.
Absolutely. But perhaps the most critical demand, and the one that really highlights the administration's failure, was his request for a meeting with Commissioner John Hamm.
A meeting that had apparently been promised to him before.
It had, and yet, when the crisis escalated, Hamm's office just went silent.
That silence.
Yeah.
That leads us right into this institutional wall the family just keeps hitting. They're basically using bureaucracy as a weapon here, aren't they?
That is the perfect way to put it. We see all this evidence of them using their own administrative systems to deliberately slow walk, confuse, and ultimately reject urgent, life-saving requests.
Like the communications blackout.
Exactly. By day 4, his wife is placing urgent welfare check requests, and those calls get routed to an office called Constituent Services.
Constituent services. I mean, that sounds official, but what is that? And why is it the single point of contact during a weekend health emergency?
Well, it's essentially the public-facing desk, but family members across the state have described it as a black hole. It's designed to manage communications, not facilitate them.
Right.
And the key detail here is that the employee they were routed to, and Mrs. Townsend, reportedly does not work on weekends. So a day 4 urgency call just hits an automated wall. No human response is guaranteed until Monday morning.
Which just reveals a total lack of infrastructure for handling urgent human safety issues outside of business hours.
And it didn't stop with just being unavailable. They started weaponizing medical privacy HIPAA to justify providing zero information about a man who is actively starving himself to death.
This is where it gets really circular.
It's a textbook case of bureaucratic obstruction. On day 21, the ADOC publicly tells a reporter that Traywick has to sign Form H2C for them to release medical info.
Okay.
But staff had previously told the family the form didn't even exist. And more than that, ADOC was physically preventing him from signing anything while he was isolated and solitary. He had no pen, no forms, no access to staff.
So they created the obstacle and then cited the obstacle as the reason for their silence.
Exactly. But even beyond their own forms, his wife, Dr. Traywick, has valid legal authority to get these updates correct.
She does. A notarized power of attorney, a POA executed back in November of 2024. It grants her full legal and medical authority. It is a legally binding state document.
And yet, both ADOC and YesCare, the medical contractor, are refusing to honor it.
How is that possible?
They're prioritizing the vendor's internal policy over the state's legal authorization. It's a profound disregard for the law, all in the name of administrative convenience.
And that disregard, it seems to extend to his entire family, even when they're part of the system themselves. His son, Zy Traywick.
Yeah.
He's an officer.
He is an officer at the Franklin County Sheriff's Department. On day 15, his son called Bullock asking for a welfare check. He identified himself as an officer, hoping to ease them into the request.
You think that would help?
The response was appalling. A staff member named Linley reportedly told this uniformed officer calling about his starving father that it was, and I quote, "none of my business," and then hung up on him.
Just hung up. It shows the institutional disregard isn't about advocates versus staff. It's just aimed at basic human decency, no matter who's on the phone.
And all while this is happening, the key demand for a meeting with Commissioner Ham goes unanswered, even when the facility's own warden visited Traywick.
Right, that was on day 15. Warden McKee reportedly visited him but claimed to be unaware of any reason for the strike.
After 2 full weeks of intense media coverage and family appeals, the warden's claimed ignorance suggests an official top-down policy of denial. Just ignore the protest rather than admit the underlying conditions are legitimate.
And that denial, it makes the medical situation, which is now acute, even more dangerous. Right. We need to shift to the medical reality right now because day 35 is deep into the worst-case scenario.
It is.
When we talk about this days 21-plus danger window, what exactly are the immediate risks facing Traywick?
This is critical to understand. Day 21 and beyond is where the risk of catastrophic physical damage just skyrockets. We're talking cardiac collapse, severe delirium, organ failure, and death.
And what has ADOC confirmed they're doing?
Only that he is monitored daily and vitals are taken. But they have confirmed no lab testing, no psychiatric evaluation, and certainly no treatment plan has been shared with the family. Basic monitoring is not medical care in this scenario.
It's not. And the negligence goes beyond just insufficient monitoring. There's a foreseeable and potentially fatal risk if they reintroduce nutrition the wrong way.
Refeeding syndrome.
Explain that.
Yeah.
Because it sounds technical, but the reality is absolutely lethal if it's handled incorrectly.
It is a fatal risk that medical professionals are trained to anticipate. It's the standard of care in any prolonged starvation case. If they try to reinstate nutrition too quickly, if they don't follow a very specific monitored protocol that balances electrolytes, the resulting metabolic crash can cause sudden cardiac death.
And the sources show no acknowledgement from ADOC or their medical vendor, YesCare, that they're even aware of this.
Nothing, which suggests deliberate indifference to a foreseeable way he could die.
It's a crisis built on medical peril and constitutional failure. And his isolation, the legal implications there, taking away his mail, his tablet, his law library access, while he has active legal cases.
It's total isolation from the courts, a direct violation of his constitutional right to access them.
And it's how they're doing it that's so telling.
Right. They've been blocking electronic messages that contain public Alabama statutory text, the literal text of the law.
Under the excuse of facility security.
They are treating state law itself as a security threat to systematically dismantle his ability to seek a legal remedy.
And this whole strike was sparked by, and now shines a massive spotlight on, the underlying inhumane conditions inside Bullock that he was protesting in the first place. These are major Eighth Amendment claims.
Absolutely. The sources detailed deeply unsanitary conditions, especially in the mental health dorms. People forced to eat and sleep in the same spaces, dealing with severe pest issues.
But the one detail that it strips away all human dignity is the report of officers telling people to stop urinating during count.
A direct denial of basic bodily functions. And that specific act was condemned in Alabama's own legal precedent in Hope v. Peltzer.
So it shows this stunning, years-long historical disregard for basic human rights within the ADOC.
And that disregard is incredibly expensive. We have to follow the money. Investigative reporting shows that this entire structure of systemic failure, the refusal to comply with standards, the excessive force, it has a massive financial cost.
Borne directly by the Alabama taxpayer.
Alabama paid a jaw-dropping $57 million since 2020 to defend lawsuits and settle claims against ADOC.
$57 million in just 4 years. That is the price of impunity. And to put that number in perspective, ADSC settled 94 excessive force lawsuits in that period,
Costing the General Liability Trust Fund $17.4 million. And the system that generates those lawsuits actively protects the officers creating the liability. Look at the case of Officer Edmonds.
involved in 6 excessive force suits, costing the state over $198,000 in settlements.
And despite attempts by a former commissioner, Jeff Dunn, to demote or even fire Edmonds, the officer appealed and was later promoted to lieutenant.
How is that even possible? How can the system be designed to reject internal accountability from the very top?
Because it's a culture of impunity. The system protected that officer from being fired by the commissioner himself. This ensures that the revolving door of excessive force keeps spinning, driving up that $57 million price tag for the public.
So here we are, Christmas Day, day 35. Traywick remains in acute danger. His wife, Dr. Traywick, is not only fighting for his life, but she's also pushing for policy change that goes way beyond just his case.
And given her background in counselor education and juvenile corrections, she's emphasizing that ADOC has to be guided by the evidence-based question. Who do we want returning to the community?
She sees this as a systemic failure to rehabilitate.
Completely. She's arguing that fixing it requires policy solutions that go way beyond a GED. Things like parenting skills, cognitive behavioral treatment, trade skills, emotional maturity training. She is fighting for the system, not just for her husband.
And Traywick's own resolve, despite everything, is just chillingly clear. His recorded statement where he says, "I'm going to make them kill me, sir."
That quote, it just underlines the profound desperation behind this lethal form of peaceful protest. He chose this path because all the other avenues, the legal and administrative ones, they all failed. They failed to address the constitutional abuses affecting him and thousands of others.
His life is the final card he has left to play to force some kind of acknowledgement.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? We've tracked Kenneth Traywick's journey from a targeted advocate to a man in a life-threatening medical emergency on day 35.
The sources show a clear line between constitutional failures, retaliation, medical obstruction, inhumane conditions, and this massive financial burden on the Alabama public.
And the irony is just sitting right at the top of the organization. ADOC Commissioner John Hamm is a member of the Alabama Sentencing Commission, a body tasked with establishing a fair, effective, and efficient justice system.
And yet, Hamm continues to refuse to meet with the family or the man whose strike exposes just how unfair and ineffective that system actually is.
This denial isn't just indifference, it is actively perpetuating the crisis.
So you have a system that successfully blocked its own commissioner from firing abusive officers, and that same system is now successfully stonewalling a highly educated professional and her family on the brink of tragedy on Christmas Day.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to consider. When a system that's designed to protect the public spends tens of millions of taxpayer dollars defending itself against its own internal violence and repeatedly ignores court precedents and valid legal authorizations like a POA, What force is left that's powerful enough to compel the ADOC to acknowledge the legitimacy of a peaceful protest, especially one that has become a critical, life-threatening emergency?